Good morning, everybody. Wednesday morning. It's the 20th of October already. We are just flying to the end of the year now. It's ridiculous. You got November. You got a little bit of this month left. December is a big blur, and then before you know it, it's Christmas and New Year. And I love saying this because some people lose their shit. They're like, there's no time. What are we going to do? Some people are already thinking about Christmas shopping. Some people are already thinking about their holidays. Now, be honest, are you? Because you got such limited time now. Seriously, if you're gonna do a December holiday and you don't make a decision in the next week and a half, you are finished. You're out. You're on your own. Okay, let's get cracking. It's a good Wednesday morning, and it's especially good this morning. We have Mbulelo, and we've got Alan Ford back. Hey, Al.
Morning, Gareth. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, nice to see you. The last time we spoke to you, it was about that Hope tour that you were doing around the country with sponsors of Brave, and you guys are going around. You were going around helping people feel a little bit better, especially people who've been trapped in hospitals and people who haven't really had contact with anybody over the last 2 years. It's such a nice idea. You seem like such a nice guy when you do all that stuff.
Oh, such a nice guy.
Exactly. What a nice guy.
You know what? It's a good initiative. The whole thing is, and it was phenomenal to go to places like Durban and the various hospitals, the government hospitals, the private hospitals. Yeah. You know, people are people, and that's how we looked at it. So thank goodness we had a very, very successful run, or should we say bus. And all in all, you know, the music was great. The camaraderie was excellent, and hundreds of nurses and doctors came to the streets or to the parking lots of the hospital. And you had the likes of Vicky Sampson performing and Craig O'Barn. And, you know, I love the musical theatre world. So it was lovely to have some of those people.
Those people have had nothing to do for 2 years.
It's really sad. And, you know, Gareth, you think of someone like Vicky Sampson, who is a South African superstar. Her last gig before this one was in November.
Oh, my God. Poor woman.
And I mean, if you think about it, that's, you know, she's got, I mean, her song African Dream's got to be one of the most popular South African songs of all time. And to think an artist like that and that caliber and a cabaret singer, and last had a job in November, 10 months ago, kind of crazy.
Does Vicky still crank out African Dream? Do you get it?
We cranked her. She cranked it everywhere. She was African dreaming it. She was, but her and there was a top performer called Lelo from The Voice, Matamane, and Lelo and Vicky did it the first time that she'd ever been done as a duet at the end, which was just great. So it was a bit of a new version. And new take, but when they hit those whoa, 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 and I drove Vicky mad because I kept singing to it on the bus. so she never wants to hear that.
You know, like for example, I mean, I remember Billy Joel hates playing Piano Man. I mean, he's been doing that much longer than Vicky Sampson's been doing African Dream, but he hates it. So when people request that song, he goes inside, even though he does it because people love it, right?
Well, there was an interesting story. So I asked her this question actually, and I said, Vicky, have you have people ever said to you, did you sing it too much? And she said, you know, she was sitting in the audience once. Actually, Gareth, I think you were in the audience. Let me tell you what happened. It was around about, I think, the finale of Idols. One of the Idols in the beginning stages, maybe the first 5-8 years. How many years are there? 5,000 years. This thing's still going on.
So
boring now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but I'm bored now. No one's watching it. It's really ridiculous. It's a bit stupid. But I don't get it. I don't understand how you can go on for 25 years. It gets a bit.
All right. Calm down. You're very aggressive for this time in the morning. All right.
Okay, I'm just making a statement. But now think of this concept. So she was, and so one of your fellow judges, Randall, was had one of the girls sang African Dream, and he said how much she hated hearing that song, and is so bored of that song. And then next thing, Colin Moss, who was the presenter at the time, said, oh, well, on that note, my next link is to the singer of African Dream, Vicky Sampson, who was in the audience, who he ripped the song to shred.
Randall wouldn't have cared.
He didn't care, but insulted her, so she can't stand him on the side note.
Of course you can't stand him. You know, there are a lot of people, like, there are these enmities that flow deep down in South African entertainment. There are a couple of people who really don't like me, I suppose. There are a couple of people who really don't like you. It's hilarious, though, to me.
But I mean, I get it. I get it, Gareth. You heard the song 400 times. You say it out, but you don't mean to insult the person sitting right behind you. But reason
yeah. In Randall's case, he probably did mean to insult her. You know what he's like.
Yeah, you probably saw her at the door. Probably bought her a coffee.
Well, he must have.
Anyway, listen, we got a lot to catch up on. We will be talking later on to Elle about something, you know, it's Mental Health Month. And really, this month is for everybody. We've been talking a lot about mental health with Dr. Hanan Bushkin every Monday, and he's just terrific. People love him. We've been solving people's problems. We've been helping them deal with conflict resolution, helping them to understand the basic conditions that so many people live under: anxiety, depression, even the more complicated ones like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And there are some real things that people are dealing with in Mental Health Month. And I know it's become a bit like, ooh, you know, it's the cool vogue thing at the moment to claim that you've got some mental health condition or to talk about it like you know anything about it. But the real experts are the psychiatrists. And I know a lot of people have been asking about this. So we have probably the foremost psychiatrist in the country who's going to be doing a series of podcasts with us. And we will interview him a little bit later on this morning because Alan's going to be working with him and with Adcock Ingram, which is just terrific. It's going to be a show for psychiatrists, but anyone can listen in. And it's a professor called Christopher Szabo, who's really an amazing man. And I had the pleasure of sitting with him and talking to him about the idea that this podcast is going to embody. And we'll talk to the prof, and we'll talk to Elle a little bit later on about that. But first, get into your life a little bit. You've had a bit of, since we last had you on the show, just in the context of Alan Ford, your life has got pretty exciting. You've been to rehab. You've been
you've
taken on a whole lot of new jobs. You're doing all kinds of interesting things. I don't know if you've had relationships or not that you want to talk to us about. What's been going on? Give us an Alan Ford update.
So let me tell you, Gareth, we're talking Mental Health Month. So COVID was a bit of an interesting period. I decided to take drinking to a little bit of an extreme. And
how extreme? Because a lot of us worry that maybe we have a drinking problem. Were you drinking every day and every night?
Well, I want to tell you something. It wasn't every day. I never drank in the day. So this is what makes you think you're not an alcoholic, and then you find that you actually are an alcoholic. But I never drank Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I would start Thursday night, and Thursday night I would drink to fall over drunk stage.
Ooh.
So I would, for example, let's say during lockdown it was difficult, but if I've been doing this for years, go out, have a few drinks, have a few tequilas, come home, crack open a bottle of vodka, finish the bottle, sleep at 3:00 in the morning. So it was interesting. I always thought I never had a problem because I never drank in the morning and I never drank every day. Meantime, I was drinking in the morning, only 3:00 in the morning, not at 10.
Right.
You see. And then I was, my life became unmanageable. Actually, I started to hate drinking. I loved it, but I hated it. So it was always that stage where you snort and try in the end. And I never harmed anyone else, except for sending some stupid texts often, which is really a dumb thing to do. And
embarrassing.
And embarrass yourself, yeah. But I realized that I was not managing and coping with drinking. So I, in a very hungover, maybe slightly drunk Friday morning, decided to take myself off to rehab. And I got to a well-known rehab in Johannesburg. They call it almost like the Michael House of rehabs, called Houghton House. And I went there.
Oh, so then it's not very good.
No, we had to go to the fancy point taken. No, they were good, but I must say. So I walked in there, went for an assessment, still drunk out of my mind, crying, all that stuff. And then they said we have a spot coming to rehab. So I said. So I went through the gates from the top area down to the bottom area to the medical area to go get checked up. And here's the thing: I said, "No, this is a mulhouse. I'm not one of these people. Let me leave." So I started walking out, to which my family said, "Walk straight back in." and
Oh,
don't
really?
sort yourself out. Yeah.
Oh,
At that
really?
point, because they came to drop my bag off. So, because I just arrived there. But here's the thing, is that I really spent the first 3 days crying, thinking I'm not one of these people. And I must tell you, liquid junkies think they're elitists. We think we're better than other people. Actually, there are people that think they're better than us. So I thought I'm better than alcoholics because I didn't drink every day, but I am an alcoholic because I'm unmanageable, and there's powerlessness in my drinking and in the habit.
Yeah.
And in the addiction, because it's a disease, of course. It's a mental health disease, by the way, as we know. But it's so funny. I want to make you laugh because people think they're better than other people in this scenario. So, for example, if we drink too much, if you're an alcoholic, you think you're better than the Dacha people, and then the Dacha people think they're better than the cocaine people. The cocaine are the Beverly Hills of the junkies. They are much better than the crystal meth heads, who are much better than the tickheads. Okay.
Oh,
and
wow.
then the tickheads are much better than the heroin addicts. And then basically the people that think they're the best are the people on over-the-counter medicine, the people that are on all the barbiturates, all the
But that's because those people, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's also because those people think, well, I'm not really on drugs. I had these prescribed. I'm not a filthy, dirty drug addict who gets my drugs on the street. I get them from my chemist.
And that's so stupid, because the fact of the matter is they are just as bad. And the whole thing is it works on, and then you have to do the 12-step program. But I thought I didn't have a problem until I realized when I was speaking to a lady called Tina and another lady. I was talking to some ladies because they're like some people in their 50s and 60s there, and you go, wow, they're actually top doctors and top accountants and top people, top well-known people. Even a minister in one of the African governments was in there with us. Yeah.
Oh, really? Ooh.
Correct. Very interesting. And so it's anyone can have a problem with addiction, as you know. We had by the way, the best people that in the whole place that think they shouldn't be there, always the sex addicts, but we'll come to them later in the show. Those are the interesting ones. Because how do you judge how you're addicted to sex? That's another story. But the interesting thing is that you realize you're all the same. You're all on the same basis. And when I was speaking about some of the high-hit bottles, I realized, maybe I definitely have to be here. And so after the first...
You hid bottles around your house so that you could drink.
Yeah. And how you get rid of them, how you dispose of bottles, because you don't want family to see. You're embarrassed.
Wow. So you live with your family?
I was during lockdown, staying with my family. But not only that, hotels. I used to stay at a popular hotel in Cape Town, and I knew the staff. It was a boutique hotel. And how I used to smuggle the bottles out of the place to get rid of them. So
how long were you in rehab, Alan?
30 days. And then I'm still in the program because you go for 3 months. I went actually for 4 months of 3 times a week in what they call aftercare. And then I'm in recovery maintenance now, which is once a week for 2 hours a week. But you still got to have meetings, you have a sponsor, all that type of stuff. But it was crazy. It was mal.
I have a question. Because,
literally mal.
Were you addicted to the substance or to the escapism?
I think your escapism leads you to be addicted to the substance because you want. So they work hand in hand. One draws you in, and the other one holds you in. But you must understand, I also had fun drinking. It was drinking. We think it's perfect because we go out, we have a jaw, we have a tequila, we have a so drinking. You think is fun, and it's nice to be drunk. I love being drunk, but not
South Africans love drinking because it's the only socially acceptable thing that we can do. We're encouraged, to think of everything else as being really bad for us. But it seems drinking has just escaped that judgment. South Africans are cool with drinking. We go to drinking establishments when we want to have fun. We drink publicly with each other. There's no shame attached to drinking.
In fact, we don't know how to socialize without alcohol in South Africa.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And I battled with that. That was hard for me because I'm used to, and the industry we're in, Gareth, and I mean, you both will know this. We would go to Sun City, for example, invited by Sun International. and we would just drink whatever we wanted, and we were spoiled that way. And every function you plowed with liquor. And then I come from a Lebanese family, and of course, there's nothing like all the chayes. How's it, brother? Yeah, exactly. And we're having, and each Jewish wedding or Lebanese wedding or Greek wedding, you're drinking and you're having a big party. And ultimately, it's, I came from that culture. I didn't come from a home of drinking. My parents didn't drink. But I mean, Gareth, you knew that since we were in our 20s, I have plowed down and loved drinking and loved getting drunk.
You hit it quite hard, but I'm always wondering where the line is, whether you need to think of yourself as having a problem or not.
Well, are you unmanaging? Is your life becoming slightly unmanageable? And if you're doing something, if you're hiding bottles, you've got a problem. And
also if you're hurting people. If
people are telling you, if people say around you, listen, hey, you're sending stupid texts, you're doing something. If you do it once every 5 years, I get it if you're passing out. But if you're passing out 4 times a week, you've got a problem.
Oof.
And
must have felt horrendous. I mean, if you're drinking like to pass out drunk, you must have felt so shit.
Well, you lie to yourself. You say to yourself,
you wake up in the morning and you got a hangover on a Thursday. Yes, no, that's not funny.
Well, but that's the thing is I used to wait till Fridays, so I would take the Friday off, or I'd be in Cape Town. But I lied to myself. I used to say I don't suffer from hangovers. Of course, you suffer from it. You were hungover all the time.
Yeah, correct. You forgot what it felt like to not have a hangover.
To not have a hangover. So that's so. So it was a very interesting experience. A lot of hard work. It's still very challenging. You're on that edge always. It's been 8 months almost.
Are you now one of those? Are you one of those people who has to say you are a recovering alcoholic? Is that what you have to say to
people? And every day, and you must watch the movies are exactly what this is about. This is what happens when you watch 28 Days with Sandra Bullock. That's exactly, you sit in those groups and the most interesting, fascinating people, by the way, wonderful people.
Alan, something like this is interesting. So, I mean, I've walked a similar path, but I've brought enough people with it. I'd like to know, do you kind of see it that now this is the rest of your life?
Yes.
If you say the word addict, what you have to do is keep the barbarians at, you've got to keep the barbarians at the gate for the rest of your life. You've got to constantly. So do you see it that way, or do you?
No, it's for the rest of my life.
You have to keep saying that to people now. And did you have to go to meetings? And how did you actually beat this thing? Did you do all the 12-step program shit, all that normal?
I'm on one of the steps still, so I'm in the middle of the program. I'm on step 6.
Oh.
And then I'll probably, because there are a couple of pillars to this thing. So that you've got to have your meetings, you've got to have your sponsor, you've got to do your service, you've got to do your step work. You keep this is for the rest of your life. So I always say,
I had this conversation with a friend of mine over the weekend in Durban. She was telling me about a relative of hers who's an alcoholic. They can't even have alcohol in the house because
there's none in my house.
Triggered by it. So you're not allowed to. You've got to stay away from drinking in every way, shape, and form now. You're not allowed to even have a drink.
So never, no, off bounds forever.
Okay. Very serious. I thought you were just trying out the rehab because you thought you had a problem, but you'd go back to your old life and just monitor and modify your drinking habits.
It's a life of sobriety. Never happen again.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. That's pretty hectic. What am I going to do if I see you in public now? I don't have a drink with you.
Oh, we're going to have to drink cold drink.
All right.
But
Gareth, you can still have your gin, by the way.
You can drink. I don't mind. It doesn't affect me.
Well, I didn't mean to cast aspersions on you. It is a little fruity, Alan. I mean, do you drink gin? It is a bit like I know we live in a world where you can't say it, and some
people didn't land it. You didn't land it, Spew. You didn't land the joke.
What do you? Are there people you have to forgive and all that kind of shit too?
Oh, you got to go through all that type of stuff. So on step 4, you go through. You've got to forgive. You've got to ask for forgiveness. You've got to ask to people that you've wronged. And I've had relationships where drinking has been the base of a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
And you see that now. No one wants to see it when you're in it. No one wants to see that they've got a problem. No one wants to see. But the fact of the matter is, I know so many of my friends, and family and relatives that have a problem and don't know they have a problem. I didn't know I had a problem because I never drank every day. And I thought, well, it's normal. It's not normal. It is not normal to pass out drunk. It's if I had 4 chocolate cakes in front of me and ate them all, you're going to go, this person's got an issue. You can't eat 4 cakes.
Mbulelo will shoot you right there.
Oh, you shouldn't be eating cake at all. Let's be very clear, Alan. You shouldn't be eating cake at all.
That's the problem. That's the problem. The rehab. So now I put on weight because I've been eating shit. So that's a whole nother story. So that this life.
All right, one step at a time, Al. One step at a time.
I know I'm on step 6, so let's get to step 7.
I see. Mbulelo wants to talk about the elections. There's no way we're talking about that today. Tomorrow we've got the burning platform. We've got Pumi. We're going to talk a little bit about something I saw on the highway yesterday, which made me laugh, even though I was stuck in some traffic for a while. You just got to remind me tomorrow when we talk to Pumi. But this morning, no politics. What I do want to talk about is you. So you were in rehab, but you've also had some adventures. Now, famously, we've told the story a couple of times on the show of you going out and trying to find a hooker to be on my show when you were my producer years ago.
Oh, I tell you, the hookers, me and hookers.
What is it with you and hookers? There's always something going on with Alan Ford and hookers. And
I didn't have a sex addiction.
Stop hanging out on Oxford Street at 2 in the morning then, Alan.
You don't have to go to Oxford Street. Come to my street. Come to my road here by my road.
So hang on.
No, man.
So you you had hookers outside your bedroom window.
Let me explain this to you. So I'm staying. Now listen, I've got to tell you about the hookers, me and the hookers. Okay, so I've always said, let us have respect for people. I must, don't judge other people.
Yeah, sex workers have their dignity.
They have their place in some way, and they've always been in society. So I'm not going to judge these people, but I've got a problem. Because you see, my apartment building is on West Road South, right next to the Morningside Shopping Centre, where that circle is. You know where that circle by the Morningside Clinic, not okay.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a top restaurant down the road here, and a big apartment building, and this now has become the Oxford Street. So they don't stand in Rivonia Road anymore. They're standing on this up one block up, and they stay, and they are on my corner, right? I'm on the first floor, and I can hear them right outside my window. And there are 3 of them that stand there on that corner every night.
Yeah.
Firstly, I couldn't understand what this jibber jabber was. Every night I heard this racket, exactly a big racket, and I kept thinking that neighbors are making a noise. Just moved into this new apartment building. It's really probably one of the nicest addresses in South Africa. So, you don't expect these things. And 2, I had to go. And about 10 days later, I kept hearing this racket, this noise, this talking. And strange times, because we've been lost.
What time is this? Because we're
talking 2 o'clock in the morning, huh?
Oh, my God.
We're talking 2 o'clock.
They don't care about curfew.
So that's what aggravated me. So I wanted to go to my local police station to say, I don't understand. Why is it that everybody, the waiters, the only people that are not keeping to the curfew are the hookers? Seriously, even the beggars are off the streets by 9 o'clock. So now lockdown's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. This lockdown on this street is not happening here. These hookers love to have. They are, and who are they? Who's visiting them? I want to know. Are the doctors? Because who's allowed on the street? Who's allowed in the road? Everyone's in their house. So how is it possible?
Where's the business coming from?
Where is the business? But obviously the business hasn't been great because they're still sitting on this corner talking. So I decided, now hold on, I can't do this anymore. After 2 weeks so I decided to go talk to the hookers.
Yeah.
So firstly, I thought, well, let me take some cold drink. Let me have a chat to him so you're making some noise. So I walked across the road. This is 2 o'clock in the morning, cold winter, to go and speak to these ladies. And they firstly wanted to have sex with me. So I'm not interested in female hookers. I'm not interested in that. And so I had to just explain to them I'm not interested in any sex.
How did you?
Why? Well, why, Alan?
No, hang on. I'm just curious how this.
Why
happened.
I don't have sex with them? I'm gay.
You say first they wanted to have sex with me.
Yes, they thought I was coming to get them.
How did that happen?
Well, they firstly asked me, would I like to join them? And all three of them would do an orgy for me. And so I was like, no, I'm not interested. And I said,
Alan, they don't do it for you. They do it with you.
Yes,
a big part of the orgy is with you. You'd have to expose your nether regions as well.
I can promise you, Alan's never been in a 3-woman orgy, so this is all
never. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's one of those things you just know. Not going to happen.
Not your thing.
Not going to be there. So I first had to explain, and one was very. Oh, she looked ugly. She looked like she was from the Cape Flats, but she was no teeth. And the other two were very pretty. The other two could have been Miss South Africa contestants. They probably are. We don't know. But
they're loud and obnoxious, and
loud and obnoxious, and they could be a bit high and drunk. So I took a couple of cold drinks. Well, got to be careful how you say Coke now. Hookers, Coke. It's not great. I was in rehab. Not good.
Yeah, nice.
So I took a couple of cold drinks, a couple of Mars bars, and walked across the street just to be polite. And I said, listen, do you mind? It's very noisy. Can you keep it down? So firstly, they wanted to jump my bones.
Yeah.
And I wasn't interested, obviously.
How did you dissuade them from that? Did you say to them straight up, like, I'm gay, I'm not interested?
I did. I said, I'm not interested. I'm gay. I don't know. I want men. They said, no, they can convert me. They're so sexy. I thought, ooh, no. I thought to myself, I thought they go Stabani. I said, I thought to myself, this would have converted me if I was straight.
All right.
To homosexuality. But and so I said, listen, ladies, do you mind, please, keeping it down?
Did you point to your apartment and say, that's where I live, it's very loud?
Well, they still wanted to come into the apartment, or they wanted to come into the block. I said,
well, it's one of the nicest addresses in South Africa.
Correct, of course.
You just told us, yeah.
And it's cold. And no doubt they're wearing skimpy outfits because that's how they pick up their clientele. So they're probably freezing. They want to come into your apartment.
And the one flashed her vajayjay at me. She said, look at my one. And I'm like, no, I don't want that one. Thank you. But I am not asking for your services. I'm asking you. And the one's touching me like this. And I'm not interested in this. And I'm asking, what is it with me and hookers? Like, I mean, really, do I have to? So I'm like, please, if you don't mind.
Man.
In the end, they want to come into I said, you can't come to the apartment. They'll give me a special discount. I don't want a discount. I want to try to get these ladies for your show because they would be fascinating, actually. These ones would be.
You go ahead. Let's see how they go. Are they still there? You didn't manage to.
They're still there. They're still there. And then there's a group that now, when they're not there, they walk up and they work on the next corner opposite them. So I've got this noise going on, and it's quite. So like they scream at each other across the
stereo hookers.
I don't need television. I could just that's generations right there on my corners.
Sure.
And so I want to know. Here's the questions though. The questions are: who is visiting these people? If you're visiting them at 2:00 in the morning when it's curfew, I'd love to know who's and how they do that in winter. Aren't they cold? I mean, they're in tight dresses. It's -2 degrees.
This is a really hard life. And, I suppose them chatting to each other at high volume is probably the most annoying thing to you. But you think of like that's their off time. They're probably like just grateful that at that point they don't have to be climbing on top of some lazy fat guy and having sex with him. Or, it's probably the worst thing for them. I mean, they're standing out on the street, but that's at least they're not working at that moment. Or maybe they'd prefer to be working. It would be warm and they get money for it.
The real solution here, Alan, is maybe we get your landlords to put in some double glazing windows, and then we don't have this problem. You just close the window and get the aircon going.
That the thing is that they're just very, very loud. And they're loud. They're talking to each other across the street. They're fighting across the road.
Oh, they fight?
Of course they have. They tend to treat people that it's opposition. It's like a client. It's opposition across the road. It's. I don't know what to tell you, but all I know is that the noise hasn't stopped. They are still, and I don't know what to do now. I've been here now for 5 months.
Corona's Boring says it's probably the police visiting them during curfew. That's probably right.
Probably as well, because I peep out the window sometimes to see what's going on, because it's like a movie. It's like
and then
watching
a lot of people talking about the rehab, and people saying that AA, Robin says, a bit of a boys' club and full of losers. A lot of people saying that they've had good experiences in rehab. And then this one from Robin, she's sorry, it's not Robin, it's someone else, says sex addiction is the worst. Sis, what do you think is the worst? Because who gets judged the highest? You said it was what, the people on
heroin.
Heroin's the worst, right? Everybody looks down on the heroin addict.
No, but to be honest with you, at that stage, the cheaper the drug, the more addictive, the more you're in, the more the more rubbish. So it's hard. It's all hard to get off. It's the same program for everybody, by the way.
Right.
It's food from right now. This is for everybody. So I want to comment on Robin. It works. Can I tell you something? It works because you make the program work for you. And thousands, hundreds of millions of people throughout the world use this program. It's used in majority, I think 90% of our rehab facilities in South Africa use these, or hospitals as well, that use the 12-step program. There's a fellowship. It's not a little boys club for people.
We know it works. We know it's helped many people. It doesn't help everybody. Nothing is foolproof, but it works.
It does work if you make it work. It's a program for this is not, you don't start it thinking that in a year's time or in 6 months' time, your addiction's gone. It is a disease. It's a mental illness. You got to understand that this is a disease. There's a rewiring that happens in your brain.
Yeah.
From it, and new neural pathways that change in your brain. So I just, obviously someone had a bad experience with it, but yeah, majority of people see it work.
Here's an interesting point from Lyndon Dooley. She says Nyaupe is the worst. I think that's probably about right. But those people hardly ever even make it a rehab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, Alan, full on, because abstinence is the key, right? I mean, I think for those who've dabbled far too much in things, are you thinking of going like full on? So for me, whenever I tell people I quit drinking, first question they ask me, "Are you Christian?" And I go, "Get the hell out of my face." Do you think you're gonna go full on like a Christian preacher guy? Yeah, like only through God is this possible. Do you think you might become that guy? Because you're brilliant at sort of marketing, and you're an awesome personality. For the few times I've met you, you could spin a whole yarn there. Maybe a business opportunity, Alan. I'm thinking start your own church. Through me, you can recover.
Alan would start a really interesting church. I think it would be very good. I might go to that church. It would be hell of a funny.
Yeah, well, so I tell you about the 12-step program. It's interesting because
you're already a religious guy. I mean, you come from a Lebanese family. You guys, you grew up religious. Maronite.
I love God. Works with me.
Yeah, and so you don't have to suddenly convert. But a lot of people replace one addiction with another, right? So what they do is they go from drinking to drugs, or they go from drugs to religion, or they go from religion to sex, or to gambling, or any of those things.
So let's just put something. It's just called cross addicting. People do that. You in the program, you watch it, stuff like that. You watch it. It doesn't manifest in sex. It doesn't manifest in something else. But the program does speak to a higher power. So it could be the universe, it could be the sunrise, it could be God, it could be whatever you put into your space. It is in the program. It's actually your third step. Second and third step looks at finding, because you can't do this alone. You see, let's keep something in mind. This is not someone having a drink or half a bottle of wine on a Saturday night. This is people that are fall over drugs, that are addicted to the substance. Let's talk about cocaine, heavy drugs here. The people. So I'm an alcoholic, and I was only drinking 4 days a week, but 4 days was enough to classify me. I never drank in the day. So that's yeah. You have to stay away from this for forever, and you have to pray the serenity prayer. speaks to this. God grant me, it's things that you need to speak to. So you do have to put something else into your life, and people do it, and it's a part of the program. Millions and millions of people in this country have been on this program.
Nice comments. I mean, Anushka saying, and thank you for sharing your story, Al. All the strength to your journey. A lot of people who really appreciate the fact that you talk about this. Michael's saying, however, and I think this is an interesting point because this came up yesterday during our This Is Us. The AA never lets you go or lets you out. It leads you to believe you're condemned for life to be addicted to coffee, cigarettes, and the Christ Club or whatever else it is. This is true for so many areas of our lives, like climate change and inequality, and they become religious cults. They become religious questions because what happens is it's the essence of sadomasochism. You are created sick and commanded to be well. Do you know what I mean? Like you're given the problem. You're always an addict. You're always fighting this thing. So it has a religious nature to it, which is why so many people find themselves in Mbulelo, directed in a religious way.
I think we've got to just say that it's not just the AA program. You've got Narcotics Anonymous, Sex Addiction Anonymous, SAA. You've got Cocaine Anonymous. They follow the same rules or some of the same principles, but they are different organizations. So you're not dealing with.
I want to wrap it up because we can talk about this some more, but we got to get to headlines. I thank God every day that I have the personality I have because, oh my God, I hate being in a club. I mean, I even joined a business, a whole lot of entrepreneurs. It was like I went to Silicon Valley and we all kind of got together in meetings afterwards. It was like an AA for business, but not like a destructive AA, a constructive AA. So a whole bunch of really impressive people who would get together and share their stories about business. I went to one meeting and I wanted to kill myself. There's no way I'd be able to survive in AA. Not a chance. I actually can't stand these things where people put you in a program or in a club or you have to share your story, or it's just so boring to me.
Until you have to, until manage. So now you got to. This is what you got to do, and this is going to put it quite simply. Do you want to be a person that has lost their finances, their life, their family, their children, their health, or do you want to go into a system or into a program, okay, that is going to restore all that back to you? So you pick.
It might. It doesn't always work.
No, of course it doesn't. But it's got. Listen, there is nothing else out there. This is what there is. And
I get you.
Some people, very few people can just stop without the therapeutic. There's a lot of therapy that goes into why you did what you did, and and you have to go into a place to stop completely. Someone said to me, "We never knew you had a problem. What made you go, and why did you have to stay?"
Yeah,
because I needed the tools to unlearn the behavior.
Right.
I needed the tools to understand. Okay, I still want to do it.
Yeah, listen, Alan. I wish you the best on your journey because it's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing. I think I've been where you are, and I don't know your circumstances, but I truly wish you the best on your journey.
Yeah, Mbulelo used to be a massive drunk, right?
Oh, delinquent, yeah. But I stopped 8 years ago, 2013. So I wish you the best because it takes a hell of a. Everybody talks about wanting to do stuff. People don't get going. You got to get going in life. So at least you getting going. So
can I ask you this question? How did you just last question?
No. We don't want to go into Mbulelo's boring story. No, really, it's so boring. No one cares. All right, but
a middle class kid is fine. So my story is a middle class kid who's fine.
And you're fine now. Like
I'm a middle class kid who's fine. It's very boring. It's very.
All these people sharing their stories. All right, so listen, I'm going to ask you to choose one headline here. You only get to choose one, Alan. You're our guest this morning, so you get to choose. You want to know about Ace Magashule? Do you want to know about Jeff Bezos? Do you want to know about Kanye West? Or do you want to know about Durban?
Oh, it's interesting. I tell you something. Well, the Kanye West story is about the name change. You know that.
Yeah.
So that's just stupid. He's an idiot. We know he's
changed his name to Yay. We don't need to know more than that.
Yay for what? Hooray, whatever. Move on in your life. But what is happening in Durban? Because Durban's a bit of it's not the best.
So first of all, we had Makosi Koza on the other day, who we love, right? Makosi Koza is the one with big Tina Turner hair, and she's with Herman Mashaba now in his political party, Action SA. And I saw posters of hers up in Umhlanga. I was there over the weekend. But Durban's beaches are closed and have been closed since the rioting and looting. And people are starting to worry, like, when are they going to open these up again? Businesses and community members are worried about the closure of Durban North beaches following the UPL disaster. During the anarchy in July, a UPL warehouse in Cornubia was torched, causing a dangerous spillage that has affected the seawater. With no indication on whether the beaches will be reopened during the festive season, people are concerned. To be honest, a holidaymaker is not going to spend a fortune to come down to the coast for a holiday when they can't actually enjoy the water. They'll find somewhere else to go, said one business owner who runs a restaurant in Umhlanga Beach. It's been a long time since the beaches were closed. We can't swim here. We can't put our kids in the water here. So it's been a negative thing. And we hope that we'll get resolution soon so we can go back to the beach, said a resident. But it seems we haven't got an answer yet. They're apparently testing the water. So who knows?
So my parents moved to Umhlanga in May. And it's been fascinating for them because they said as they got there, it snowed in Durban. They had a riot. They had they had COVID. Okay, the beaches are closed and the seas you can't touch. So it's we don't know if my parents should have gone to Durban. That's all, but that's a whole nother story.
Wow, that's a pretty awful. That's a hell of a welcome for them.
It's a hell of a welcome for them. Yeah, I mean it's been insane. But here's the thing: there is toxic chemicals in that river still that is still seeped into the sand on that Umhloti and Umhlanga beach down that Umhlanga river.
Funny is I discovered years ago, someone who lives there said to me, oh, you know that estuary where the Umhlanga river flows into the sea, which is why it's called Umhlanga, because it's next to the Umhlanga river, right? Apparently that is a nude beach. So I just want to put out a warning to everybody who goes to that nude beach. Don't let your stuff dangle in the sand, because you might end up with, toxic genitalia or something.
It can burn your pee-pee off.
Exactly right. Okay, got some other important stuff to get to, so that's the only headline we got time for this morning.
But can I ask one other thing, Gareth? One other thing about this headline. I am perplexed by the fact that on a major river, going upstream, downstream, there was that chemical company. These people have caused. I understand the riots burnt the factory, the rioters, but Gareth, do you know that there's some investigation needs to be done here because that company was not meant to have those chemicals.
Yeah,
they weren't allowed to be at that river, and I mean they should be hauled over the coals.
Yeah. You've got to be. You've got to be responsible if you're going to have a chemical factory on a major river. Look, it's there's so many places that I don't know who they bribe to get their licenses to go into operation. But we are the Wild West in South Africa. You think there's an inspector going around checking our rivers for chemical factories? There's not a chance. This country is just whatever you pay for, you get. Doesn't matter what.
I can't do the checks, man. When I go to eThekwini, it's very humid. It's very sticky there.
We had Zandile Gumede in charge of Durban. This is a woman who she's had criminal charges laid against her, which is still pending. She should be in jail, as far as I can tell. But this is the woman who used to sign those forms. You think she cares if there's a chemical factory as long as she's getting her backhand, please?
But we understand government is useless half the time. They really are. There are 43 municipalities that are termed ineffective this week. That's how pathetic they are. Come on, pathetic. We know you're pathetic, idiots.
All right.
So what about the business? Good business. Come on.
Al, we've got to change this tack quickly because there's a big reason to talk to Revix this morning. Bitcoin is trading at $63,956, almost $64,000, new highs from Bitcoin. If you even have a fraction of Bitcoin, you are thinking the world is going your way today. You're just having the best week ever. And lots of our audience do. I'm a big believer in Bitcoin. Now, we usually speak to Sean Sanders, the co-founder of Revix. This week, though, we're going to talk to an associate of Sean's, a guy called Brett Hope Robertson. He's the lead investment analyst at Revix because Sean is busy traveling this week. Hey, Brett, how are you, man?
How's it, guys? How's the team? Thanks so much for having me on.
Cool. Nice to have you on. It's always good to have Sean on every week. And I usually joke with him that when we talk to him, things are going well in Bitcoin. But, man, if you're the lucky charm, and what a lucky charm you are. It's a pretty good week for cryptocurrencies, right?
Yeah, Gareth, it's been a crazy month even or two in the crypto space. There really is never a dull moment in crypto. I mean, think about it. A month back, we were speaking about a China ban. People were panicking that this was the end. We were losing a big crypto market, and crypto went down. Bitcoin went down to about 39,000. And fast forward 1 month, we've got the first ever Bitcoin futures ETF trading on the New York Stock Exchange, and Bitcoin about to break all-time highs. It's like everything gets kind of swept under the rug.
Well, let's talk about this all-time high, almost $65,000 for a Bitcoin. So where do you think it's going from here? I mean, is this a good time to cash out? For a lot of people, they've quadrupled or even more their money. And they're looking at it now going, you know what, I've done pretty well. Maybe it's time to pull out.
I would say history says that's kind of not the best idea right now. Normally, for where we currently are in the crypto cycle, and that being going into the last quarter of the year, mainly October, November, December, it's normally a very bullish quarter for crypto. We saw it in 2013 in December, all-time highs are reached. 2017 in December, all-time highs are reached. And then we kind of had this pullback in Jan and Feb. But dare I say it, this year, I know these words are uttered in financial areas that are not looked upon well, is I think this time could be a little different. And I think the reason is we could go a little bit longer. We could go into Jan, into Feb. And the reason behind this is the Bitcoin ETF. This is now this investment vehicle where these industries, large institutions, pension funds, retirement annuities now can get regulated access to this asset class. So we could see a wall of institutional money start to come into this space. But what people are misunderstanding is that that doesn't happen overnight. It's not going to happen yesterday at open trading. It's not going to happen yesterday when these instos can start to add funds and allocate. These funds need to go through committees on committees on committees to try get new asset allocation approved. And we're already in Q4 of the year. So I think we could see this allocation come in Q1, January. And if that does happen, I think we get a little bit of a leg up and we see an extra little bull run into January, February. With regards to like price of where we think Bitcoin is going to go, I mean, there's models out there that say 100,000, 200,000, 250,000. This is dollars by the end of the year. Who knows, really? I do think all I can say is that we're in for a very, very exciting into the year and possibly January, Feb.
All right. Well, I mean, again, we've just got to make sure that people know you're not construing financial advice to us here, but this is all about what's generally happening. With all this bullish news, why hasn't Ethereum moved as much as Bitcoin? What's going on there?
Yeah, so this is interesting, and you're absolutely correct. Like in the last month, Bitcoin's up 36% now, and Ethereum's only up about 17%. So it's underperformed by about 19%. And this is actually quite a common thing in the market. And to understand kind of what's happening here, you kind of have to understand crypto money flows. And basically what a crypto money flow is just explaining the flow of funds from one investment to another in the crypto space. So we see this bullish news, this positive news come into the market, and a lot of people that don't know much about crypto want to get in and they want to get exposure. And how do they do this? Well, they go to the biggest, the longest standing, the safest, the most reputable cryptocurrencies. So they go to Bitcoin and they buy a little chunk to be part of it, right? So we see this flow of money come into Bitcoin first and the price starts to shoot up. But what's fascinating is what happens when that Bitcoin starts to run its course, it starts to cool off a little bit. We see all these investors that have made now money on Bitcoin wanting to shift it somewhere else. So naturally, what do they kind of do? They kind of shift themselves further down the risk curve, shall we say, to an asset that's a little bit more risky, and that's namely pretty much ETH.
Yeah.
So you'll start to see as Bitcoin cools off, and I think now with this ETF news kind of gone through past, I think we might see Bitcoin kind of cool off a little bit in the next few weeks, and people will start shifting their capital into Ethereum, and then you'll see that underperformance gap start to close.
Yeah, because Ethereum's at what 3,800, so it's not terrible, but it's not where it could be. What about the others? Like you guys opened up new products recently, Cardano and Solana. How are they looking by comparison with Bitcoin?
Yeah, so they are also lagging. So these large cap altcoins is what we call it. ETH we just kind of use as the proxy for that, but they're all roughly in the same lag as ETH to Bitcoin, and it's the same consensus. What you see is when people don't want to miss out on this Bitcoin ETF news this run. When that starts to cool off, they will automatically start to pull into ETH. Now, as you rightfully said, it's an interesting time now. Normally, ETH was the proxy straight in. Now you've got the Cardanos, you've got the Polkadots, you've got the Solanas, and it becomes your choice. Do you want Ethereum, which is obviously the big daddy in that space, or do you want the Solana, the new kid on the block, doing 10x the transaction speed? That's going to be an interesting dynamic to see kind of where the capital gets allocated from that point. But from a normal investor standpoint, ETH would be the proxy first, then would go into like a Solana, Cardano after.
All right, so you guys have got a promotion launching this week. You've had new promotions almost every week. It's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why people might want to get involved? It's always good.
Yeah. So as you know, this week ending on the 21st of October, we still got the Bitcoin buy free. And from Friday this week, the 22nd of October to the 28th, one whole week, we're actually going to shift that to Ethereum. All fiat purchases on Ethereum will be free. And the reason behind this is we kind of want to play on this role that the news is out the way, try get into Ethereum. What's the best way to do that? Free on Revix before it catches up to Bitcoin.
Fantastic. All right, go along to revix.com. It's easy to do. You sign up for free, you verify your ID, and you can add as much or as little as you want. You don't have to add 10,000 Rand or 100,000 Rand. You can go in with 500 or 1,000. And then just at least you have some skin in the game. So while all your friends and family, it's just gone over 64,000, by the way. While your friends and family are talking about Bitcoin going up and they're going to buy a new house in the Seychelles, you can say, oh, well, I can buy a TV, something like that. Get involved. Thank you very much, Brett. Nice to see you. By the way, people think you look like Matt Damon's little brother.
Oh, I was going to say. No, he looks exactly like. Is that how Sean employs guys down there? Are you incredibly good looking and can I put you on a movie screen?
All right, very good.
Yes,
very good. All right, dude. Guys. Have a nice day. Thanks very much. Where's Sean? Cheers. Where's Sean traveling, by the way?
He's off to Italy.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
see,
nice
that's what happens when you invest in crypto. Everybody, you got to get to go to Italy on holiday. All right, very nice, Brett. Good. Cheers, man. Bye bye. Sure, Al, you got any crypto?
I bought some Bitcoin at about $30. And sadly, at $30 and $30,000, I bought it for $30,000. Sadly, I sold at about $34,000. So stupid me. But do you know what? It was something that I didn't understand it at first because I was one of those guys that thought, how can you create a currency out of nothing? But which sounds like a bit of a pyramid scheme, basically. Think about it.
Well, I hate
when it first happened.
Most of our currencies are just made of nothing.
All money is nothing, yeah.
It is. It's exactly. It's a flow of energy, correct? And that's just, and it's so interesting. So I only wish that that I had I kept it because I actually was thinking about it in the shower the other day. I thought, gee whiz, imagine having one coin. I mean, that is close to it's $1 million.
$1 million now. Yeah. If you'd bought one Bitcoin at any stage of this, you'd now have $1 million in value. It's incredible.
And so I'm seriously thinking of giving them a call today. Actually, I really am.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen to this quickly. This is an email I got from Matthew, and he was talking about the Emmys, which are now a couple of days ago. But he says, I know you have no interest in Hollywood and the way it celebrates itself, but I had to share this with you, and I'm hoping it'll enrage you enough as it did me to warrant a vent on the show. Gillian Anderson won an award, an Emmy, for her superb performance of Margaret Thatcher in The Crown, right? And we spoke about Margaret Thatcher on the show yesterday, and she's also one of the first episodes of Blind History. So she was asked in a press conference, this is Gillian Anderson who played Margaret Thatcher, someone said to her in the press conference, had you ever talked to Thatcher about this role at all? The reporter was... Now, this reporter is a moron, okay, because Margaret Thatcher died in 2013. There is no way that Gillian Anderson knew she was going to play Margaret Thatcher at any stage. Plus, Margaret Thatcher had dementia from about 2003-04. So there's no way she would have sat down and talked to Gillian Anderson about how to play her. And this reporter still has a job.
What a prick.
What a stupid person. You know,
what a prick.
Like this again, where you have no excuse. These machines allow you to Google anything. You can look up Margaret Thatcher, but this idiot reporter at the Emmys, who's clearly like just there because they know something about celebrities and know nothing about anything else. So yes, Matthew, that's a bit of a rant from me. I get so furious when I see willful ignorance. I don't mind if you just don't know something because you've never been that interested in it, or you genuinely are living in a hole. But if you're an entertainment reporter and you're going to ask a question like that, you have no excuse to make a fool of yourself and your network like that. I can't believe it. Anyway, I was surprised that Gillian Anderson didn't point out the obvious oversight. But anyway, I mean, maybe she didn't even know Margaret Thatcher died in 2013. Who knows? The main angle of the reporter's question that appeared to be angled at the lack of female presidents in the US, and she was looking for Anderson's opinion as an actress. It's just madness. So Matthew pointing out some dumb stuff in the media. It's not like you have to look far and wide to find that, though.
She was very good, though, in the role. Eh?
I haven't seen it, but it stems from the society we're building. Is, by the way, there are like people are idiots. Like I always say to people, you know, in my family, I'm the idiot in my family. It's very clear from our academic achievements. It's okay to be not as smart as other people, and it's because you can't tell people in Hollywood that they're idiots. Like that reporter is stupid. Right. Like we still need to be able to say people are stupid, but we can't say it anymore. You know. So
please,
tough.
Anyway, so a couple of other things that we've got to get to in the next hour, and we're going to speak to Prof. Szabo later on about a new show that we're launching on CliffCentral. You know what? We're doing some. I don't like to blow our own horn here, but I think we're doing some really cool stuff, and especially in the area of mental health. Now we're going to have Professor Christopher Paul Szabo on. Now he is somebody who really knows a hell of a lot about the world of psychiatry, not just general mental health or psychology or therapy or any of that stuff. And October is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're going to start something brand new today at 11 a.m. and we'll find out all about that with Professor Christopher Paul Szabo. And all of that's coming up in the next while. We'll also talk to Alan Ford, who's our guest on the show this morning. We've got Mbulelo. We're going to have to find out about all the things that are happening in everybody's lives and what's happening in yours. If you've got anything you want to tell us, just send me an email, Gareth@cliffcentral.com, or you can comment live on YouTube while we're doing that. It is 7 o'clock. Good morning.
Do you grunt when getting out of the car? Creak when getting out of bed? Do you walk into a room and forget why? Are you having trouble in the sack? Is the hump in a slump? Join me, Chris Haven-Smith, and Dr. Mark on the T-Health Show every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. where we talk to medical and allied professionals about those serious and not so serious medical lifestyle issues. The T-Health Show, sponsored by the T-Clinic. The T-Health Show is available on podcasts. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Yo, I put it like wow. This that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me. I hope they know by now.
Yeah, CliffCentral.com, Wednesday morning. It's the 20th of October. We got Mbulelo Tinta. We've got Alan Ford. Your news at you. It's good. It's a good day. It's a good day today. Looking like spring outside. It's been not the best weather in Johannesburg, but I'm not going to complain too much. Anything's better than winter. All right, so many things to get to this morning and so many things to talk about. We were just discussing Bitcoin skyrocketing up to $64,000. We've talked about Alan Ford's rehab that he went to.
Hookers. We spoke about whores.
Hookers. So, I mean, we've covered the gamut this morning. There's so much other
great
stuff.
morning.
It's on the agenda, though. And we will get into mental health and October being Mental Health Month. So we'll talk a little bit about that further on down the line. There's also lots of comments. If you want to talk to us, you can do that. Drop a comment in on YouTube, or you can send me an email, Gareth@CliffCentral.com. So just a quick thing. I said we weren't going to get into politics this morning, but yesterday I was driving home from the office about 3 in the afternoon, and I suddenly realized like there was traffic, but like pre-COVID traffic. Everything was going really slowly. So annoyed. So all the way from probably Buccleuch or even Allendale, all the way to just before Olifantsfontein, there was this huge backup of traffic. And I thought, there's some accident or something. So there was an accident. Eventually, 40 minutes after I started making my way through this traffic, I realized what it was. The EFF, one of their buckies, that's the only way to describe it. It's all covered in red EFF branding. There were 2 of them there. The one had crashed, obviously. So typical that the EFF, in their lead up to the elections, crashed their bucky. This shows you what would happen if the EFF actually had control of any ward in the country, because they would crash that as well. They can't even find someone to. I mean, what an embarrassing thing. I said on Monday that I was driving through Johannesburg traffic on Sunday as I got back from my holiday. And I saw a whole lot of ANC posters that had fallen off the back of a truck, obviously, and were lying all over the road, being driven over by people. It's all very embarrassing. It's Cyril's face flying past you in the traffic. It's just such a mess. And now you see the EFF with their bucky, which obviously just crashed straight into something else because the whole front of it was just like concertinaed, all in their branding. How embarrassing. If you're going to hire people to drive your vehicles around, make sure that you don't have morons doing it, because while those ads can work really well for you if they work, when they don't work, it's a real embarrassment. So well done, the EFF. You can't even find a good driver for your cars, let alone a good municipal manager for any of the wards that you're contesting. Stupid morons.
I laughed. Did you see that the all the DA ads at the side of the road, and then they put up the African Christian Democratic Party posters in place
Where's
of them. Here in Johannesburg, they'd taken a whole bunch of the DA posters down, and they'd put the African Christian Democratic Party
it's illegal to remove a party poster now during elections. I mean, I used to steal when I was a kid. I used to steal party posters every election. And I mean, they can try and arrest me now. They're not going to find any evidence. But I always thought it was fun to keep a little collection of my own, until I realized, there's no way I want those things in my house. It's just fun to steal them off the street pole.
But Gareth, how unchristian is that? I'm a Christian party. I tell you, that's not Christian. Come on, be Christian if you're going to be Christian. And take the posters with you, you idiots. How stupid. If you're going to take down people's posters, don't leave them there. You look dumb. Make them look like they're ineffective. They didn't put their posters up. But there's such great use for these posters when it ends. People can use them for the rain. They can make fires. But of course, we spoke about that chemical spill. Think about that litter. Do the political parties clean up their posters afterwards? I'd love to know.
They're meant to. It's part of the rule, is that they're meant to go and clean them up afterwards. But who knows whether they will or they won't. These guys are not these are not good people. They're not trustworthy people, Anyway.
Yeah, well, they're politicians. This explains everything, doesn't it?
Exactly. Have you already thought about the end of the year? Have you already thought about your plans for the end of the year? Are you going to be doing anything? Because I was thinking quite broadly about doing something, but really, I just think it makes sense to not spend money at the moment. I know it sounds so boring, and there are lots of people who are like, just do something, even if it's just go to the coast for a little bit. But honestly, to spend money now, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Well, this is going to be an interesting New Year because this is the first sober New Year I've had in 20 years. So it's going to be fascinating because, I've got to go to a safe space. So I'm going to be at my family in Durban, and I've put myself for Christmas and New Year there in that place where I can be in a good position where I don't have to be around. I can't go to Cape Town. I can't, Gareth, we've had, and you've seen jaw after jaw. Yeah.
Cape Town for you is like, what do you call it? Like kryptonite.
Chum.
Yeah. I used to have, thanks for that one. I used to have big parties in Cape Town, a white party every year with 400 people, and I used to throw. So I can't do any of that. So it's quite weird. I can't.
Why didn't you let the black people in, Alan?
It's white clothing.
I'm joking. I knew
we have lots of blacks.
That's great. Yeah, I like that.
That's clever. Good one. We'll remember that one in future. But interesting. I'm having a Halloween party this month, and we'll see how that happens. How we manage that as well, because there'll be booze. There's booze everywhere. You can't stay away from it. But it's how you manage yourself around it. That's the key.
Yeah.
So is it too soon to start making like the inside jokes where maybe, because it's related to your life, you come to Halloween as maybe a heroin addict? Or is it like too soon to start being
Oh, no, it is funny. I mean, I'm alcoholic, it works like that. I was always named to be that.
Oh, hilarious.
So it's crazy stuff. But you know what? It's going to, but I can't wait to travel overseas soon. That's what I want to do. So I hope that our borders open up. As you know, the UK has opened up. A lot of Europe's opened up. The guest previously spoke to the fact that
where's the first place you would go out of interest?
New York City, New York,
really,
London or New York. I must tell you, because I miss theatre. I'm missing the theatre, right. And I'm so happy to see Gareth, and I'd like to give this a bit of a punt because we don't have the theatre show any longer on CliffCentral. It'll start probably in the new year. We are starting in the new year. Okay. But here's the key aspect. Finally, Alan Committee's taking to the stage this week in Johannesburg. Peter Dirk Ace, Evita Besadenhout takes to the stage in Cape Town at the Peter Theatre this week. And the Pantomime, that phenomenal show that we've loved for years with Janice Honeyman, that takes to the Joburg Theatre in the next couple of weeks. So slowly we can get back to the arts, because no one has experienced it. If you think about who's been so hardly hit here, and as it is, they're struggling actors. We know the stories, but all of a sudden,
the pantomime, really?
Oh, I love the pantomime. It's the best. Oh, I can't wait to see Desmond Dube on that stage. He's great.
Well, funny enough, I think we got Desmond Dube joining us on Friday. I'll ask him about this because I've never been a massive fan of the pantomime.
It's so good. It's so funny. For the kids, it's great. And the Alan Committee will be hysterical, but it's be slowly opening up. And I think we missed this in our lives. At the moment, we're sitting watching Netflix.
You think so?
Yeah, people love it. People love theatre.
You definitely love it. I'm not a.
I do.
Yeah.
So Alan, since you're into asking people to do their hits, do you ever ask Desmond to give you this one? For only R1 a day, you too can have something.
Yeah. He was getting to do it, actually. I mean, it's a great. They should have sponsored the show on Friday.
That funeral stuff he does.
Clientele,
right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
him and his mom, yeah. I can't imagine them apart.
Yeah, he does it with. Is that his mom?
Is that his mom?
Lillian Dube.
Oh, of
course. I didn't think of that. I didn't know that either.
I never made the connection. No, dude, I never made this connection.
I also didn't. I'm like, I didn't know that.
I honestly had no idea.
And she's really cool. Lillian's such a great actress, and also someone who's advocates for breast cancer, lots of interesting things. So, but this industry's been hit very, very hard. And guys, if you can support it in some way, you really should. And I think there's nothing better than laughing at this time or singing or feeling joy. And so I really think get back to the theatres if you can. And they only have 50% capacity, so they're not allowed to be full. But get back.
You're putting up a good argument for this. I'll let you do it. Not
thank you.
Yeah.
Really,
right.
thank you.
Where will you travel overseas first? Because I know you love the cruise ship vibe, and I know you like New York.
Well, I do, but I've only done that 3 times in my life, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But I used to go to New York almost every year. I'm not in a hurry to get back there. Hey,
you said
I wouldn't mind going to, like we just heard Sean Sanders is in Italy or Greece or one of those places, because the Mediterranean is just magnificent. But I don't know if I'd do that in December. So I'm thinking, Mbulelo, based on our conversation on Monday, the best possible place to go might even be the Alps in like end of February, beginning of March.
Rio de Janeiro is incredible. I've been there around the summertime.
Never done Rio.
Oh my goodness, it's mind blowing. Argentina's fantastic, but it's just it would be so great to just get out and to do some real fun stuff. And I must tell you, but cruising is a phenomenal thing to do, by the way. And I'm happy you brought it up, because I love just putting my clothes in my room and then just going from island to island, country to country. Nothing better than that. It's actually stress free if you have a stress free life. So I would definitely go to New York, go off to Florida, and take a cruise into the Caribbean. That would be cool.
Okay. All right, very, very nice. Okay, so lots of comments coming in from people. I don't want to hear nothing about our sobriety journey and how in denial you are. Who's this that they're talking about? You, El?
Why is Robin's having a go today? Robs, do you have a problem, Robin? Robin, I think Robin's got an issue. To be honest with you, Robin
Tebogo says that Lillian Dube is not Desmond Dube's mom.
Okay, I was going to say, hold on. I was going to say maybe it's just a myth that got spread in the black community, but everyone said it's him and his mom. So if I'm wrong there, we'll ask him on Friday.
Him. He's coming on the show, yeah. So we'll ask him that. I always laugh at a name of the political party called COPE, because that's hilarious. Coping, and they're not coping. We actually had we've met some interesting people. Hey, some people who are running in this election. I love the fact that there's so many independent people running in these elections. I think it could be quite interesting. You know what the other question is? I have to ask everybody this: is should we do the show on the 1st, because technically it's a holiday. It's a Monday. That's voting day. Mm-hmm. Is anybody going to be listening? So Monday, the 1st of November, is election day. We're all going to the polls, but no one's going to be waking up early going to work, because effectively it's a day off for most people. So should we do the show? Are you going to be doing your sports show, Mbulelo?
Of course.
You are going to do it, regardless of the holiday.
Of course. I mean,
the show must go on.
Of course.
I'm always torn about these things. I'm like, is anyone going to be listening live? Is there really any point in doing it?
Yeah. Let's see how the week unfolds.
I want to just come back to Lillian Dube and Desmond Dube.
Yes.
She says she's technically my mother, but I don't think she is, because it says that he's known her since he was 16 years old. So no.
So you didn't know her before 16, but she's his mother. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so maybe I just read a headline like that, and I now inferred it as it is his mom.
It's technically not.
So I'm as bad as the journalist so I'm as much of an idiot as the journalist who didn't know that Margaret Thatcher died 8 years ago or whatever.
But there is the headline. So ask him the question, because that is what's confusing. According to that headline.
You can't be technically someone's mother. You know, either they fell out of your funny parts or they didn't. You know.
Yeah. You can be technically. You in other words, that person. Or you?
Yeah, actually, you could surrogacy. You could be the egg.
Good point. Good point. Okay, now I'm starting to get confused. So maybe Lillian Dube in her previous life was a surrogate mother or something, and that's what.
Maybe she gave the egg.
16 years later, they met on a clientele ad. My son, it was always going to happen.
Beautiful. Oh my God. Al, before we move on to Mental Health Month and all the rest of it, you haven't had any relationships during your time of becoming a sober person and not being an alcoholic anymore?
I've been seeing someone, but the thing is that they don't recommend it, so I've been taking it very chilled, keeping it relaxed, because again, relationship difficulties are one of the biggest triggers for falling off the bandwagon. And think how many people are alcoholics with their wives, because they just need to get away. So
So they play golf on Saturdays, quite right.
Or because of their husbands, or because they don't have a wife or a husband, or because they're the hookers down the street. So I don't know whatever is going on. It's so many things. And if you just joined us, that's because there was a reference to hookers earlier down the road. So
yes, no, we're not talking about it just because that's what Alan's obsessed with. I promise. That's not.
It's just I've
Now,
got friends that live outside.
You actually had COVID, right? And how was your experience of that? Because some people they didn't even feel it. Some people it hit them really hard. What happened with you?
So here's the thing. Firstly, my infection markers were very high, so they were very scared. Off the bat, to have such high markers was not good. So they thought, oh, this guy's going to go to hospital. So I had to do some crazy stuff, and I followed a doctor's rules who was looking after me. He said, stick to these rules, and whatever you do them. So it was an hour sitting in the sun. Plus I had a breathing apparatus. I was lucky because I brought those markers down very quickly, because off the bat it's not. They say it gets much worse from day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, and I had it day 1 so badly. So quite a scary experience, because what happened is when I had it at the end of June, a few people, a few good friends, including Vanessa Carrera's husband, Chris Gertrudis, he's still in hospital with it, and he's still on ventilators and things. But he was very, very sick at the time. I had lost other members of family, cousin. And so when you're sitting by yourself in your apartment, it's quite scary when this is happening all around you.
Got a bit paranoid. I've got some pictures of you that people took of you sitting outside your house. Shall we show those to everybody?
I'd love to see them. Yeah.
You don't mind? So here's a picture of Alan with one of his friends sitting outside the house, and they're busy, just trying to get over the COVID, and that's
I actually I felt like that actually, and I put on a bit of weight like that. So so that could be.
Well, at least you got cream on your face, sunscreen.
You've got cream on your face. So there's Alan sitting in the sun. Here's another picture of him from a different angle. This is
here it is.
While he was busy getting the so that he was got the vitamin D, which is very important for COVID sufferers. There he is again with a nice hat on. You look great.
Can I tell you something? I'd look fabulous. That's exactly that's it. That's me.
And who's this little person here you're sitting with? Who's that? I haven't seen that friend of yours before.
One of my nephews.
Anyway, it's a great selection of pictures of Elle that someone sent us. While you were recovering.
Thank you so much. I really I wish I was Marlon Brando.
But is that a drink in your hand? That's what I'm worried about.
Oh, no, that's my hand. No,
although
there's a drink in my friends.
Your nephew's got looks like a vodka martini or something going on there.
Yeah, so that's
very good though.
Thanks.
Well done.
Listen, Al, your skin looks great, and now it makes sense why. Is while you were, and that shows that speaks to who you are, because even with COVID trying to take you away from us, you said, I'm still going to stick to my skin treatment program, and that speaks volumes of who you are. In those times to have the bravery to still stick to the skin program is awesome.
And I also wanted to make my sure that I'm very white in that experience.
For the party.
For the
went to the white party. That's exactly right.
So that was for my white party.
We're going to do it. We're going all in, guys.
But I must tell you, I like that hat. I do like that hat. I think it's, I'm big onto hats. I'm fedoras.
Are you into that now?
I've always been. I've always had Panama hats that I get from Ecuador. As you know, they're not from Panama; they're from Ecuador. But I'm a hat guy. I'm a hat person. So I love that hat. I would seriously do that hat.
If anyone is confused, I put up a few pictures of Marlon Brando from the island of Dr. Moreau, where he plays this really crazy man who makes like animal-human hybrids, and eventually gets eaten by his own creatures. So that's where those pictures are from, in case you're wondering. What are the Lebs up to? Did the Lebs get hit hard by COVID, El?
The Lebanese community has been hit hard. We've lost so many members. There's a guy who was our head deacon of the church at the pillar of the community called Michael Sadie. He passed away. It was dreadful. And young people, people that we knew, listen, every community was hit here. And sadly,
some were really hit harder than others. And I think part of what's going to come out of this is we're going to have to look at why certain communities took such a hard hit.
Yeah.
You know, they looked at countries across the world, and they found that the poorer the country is, the less hard hit they were proportionally. And it has something to do with like healthy and unhealthy lifestyles. It's like, you know, if you're in a rich country, COVID was almost a disease of prosperity. You know, for people who don't exercise, who don't get out in the sun, people who eat like bad food with lots of sugar in it, it seems that in those countries, people were much more susceptible to this stuff than, you know, in countries like India or Bangladesh or, you know, places like Vietnam, where frankly, you know, these people are always out in the sun. They work really hard. They eat very healthy diets because there isn't much else available. The more fast food outlets you have in your country, the more hard hit it seems the country was. That's by and large what the research is showing at this early stage. Wonder if that's got something to do with it.
And I want to add something to this, that you've found that a lot of the rehab facilities are increased in numbers. People are sitting at home. The mental health state of people, you know, sitting with COVID, seeing people around you dying while you have COVID and you're sick, and the warning signs that you could be going to hospital, it's scary, guys. It's scary, and it's scary because you're waiting. You don't know what to expect. You're sitting with oxygen machines next to you. I was very blessed, and I didn't get it, but that's why please go get vaccinated. Go and do the right thing here, man. And vaccination can at least give you a little bit of peace of mind, if anything. And I hope people see it like that, because I think the last year we had so much stress around, are we going to get it? How are we going to get it? Where are we going to get it? It doesn't mean you mustn't be safe,
well,
but
will the hookers ever shut up? I mean, that's the kind of stress, you know.
Yeah, that's the hookers are driving me nuts.
While we're on this subject of mental health, maybe there's a good time to bring in Mental Health Awareness Month, which is October. We have a brand new show which is launching on CliffCentral today at 11 a.m., which I want to tell you about. And we got a great guest who is going to be hosting these shows to join us this morning. And he is Professor Christopher Paul Szabo. And he is the former professor, academic head of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of the Witwatersrand, and the head of clinical department at the Department of Psychiatry at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital in Johannesburg. So this is a man who really knows this subject probably better than anyone else in the country. He's currently an honorary professor in the department and an emeritus professor in the Faculty of Health Sciences. He was formerly the editor-in-chief of the African Journal of Psychiatry and is currently editor-in-chief of South African Psychiatry. We're going to start a show with him called Beyond Madness. It's in proud association with Adcock Ingram OTC, the sponsors of Brave. And it's our new podcast series that maps not only the practical aspects of psychiatry, but also the purpose, and shares a broader view on the service and the outcomes that this discipline provides to society. Let's bring him on now. Hey, Prof. Szabo, how are you?
Yes, good morning.
Morning, it's good to see you.
I'm not bad, thanks. Jeez, you got me up early for a change.
Well, yeah, I know it's always a little bit of a drag for people who've done the incredible things that you've done and who've held the positions that you've had to hear your CV read out like that. But it really is it's quite cool to have somebody who's got their finger on the pulse of psychiatry in South Africa and the world the way you do. I'm really excited about this show, and I can't tell you how many people have said to me over the years, we've done lots of stuff on mental health in a very general sense. People said to me, why don't you get a psychiatrist who knows, because you guys are the ones who understand the biochemistry of all of this. You're doctors. You are the ones who can prescribe things. You have a handle on the really extreme cases, the social aspects of these things. It's so great that we're able to do this show together. How did it all come about?
Well, I suppose it's been many years in the making. You alluded to the fact, or you mentioned the fact, that I'm the editor of South African Psychiatry. And I think that what I'm really hoping to do is convert the written word into the spoken word. And we had been discussing what I might do next, having edited South African Psychiatry for just over 7 years now. And the idea of a podcast came up, and I thought, well, geez, I don't know if I'm ready for that. But anyway, it kind of unfolded. And then we started to think about, well, what is the podcast going to be about? And essentially, it's psychiatrists talking about psychiatry, but not in a technical way. Not in a technical way. I think that I'd like to emphasize that what I really wanted to accomplish with the podcast, and hopefully that will be the case, is that I want to look at some of the issues in psychiatry, because I think maybe people have a more one-dimensional view of what psychiatry is. It's about mental illness, and psychiatrists simply diagnose and treat, which is good and well, and that's exactly what we do. However, beneath that or around that, there's a lot of thinking that goes into the discipline. It's multi-layered. And I think that there are so many issues in psychiatry that have relevance to the broader society, which are not psychiatry specific, although they are very relevant for psychiatry. Psychiatry is almost the vehicle for which these issues are impacting society or could be seen.
I'm very curious to find out what the kind of subject matter is that you guys are going to discuss on this podcast. But I really like the idea that you could have two psychiatrists talking about this, because how many of us wish that we could eavesdrop on the conversations that you guys have professionally?
What exactly?
Even if it does get a bit technical, for many of us, that would be fascinating too, because I suppose there is material now, thanks to the internet, that people can look up and try to understand themselves. But to hear experts talking about this stuff, it's kind of a higher level of doing this. It's not the Oprah Winfrey or Dr. Phil level of, oh, well, I'm very depressed, or, oh,
exactly.
None of that stuff. That really is, and it's open season on that, frankly, in the media at the moment. Everyone's doing it. To have these conversations at that level with the experts is tremendous. And obviously, there are many different layers of expertise in psychiatry. I mean, you get people who specialize in a very peculiar problem, or in a group of different mental illnesses, or a group of different treatments. What kind of subjects are you going to be covering?
Well, just to mention, the first podcast, which is going to be available, deals with the practice of psychiatry in a cross-cultural setting. And I think that it's an excellent way to tee off the series, where we look at, for example, rapid urbanization, traditional versus modern contemporary culture, the role of psychiatry, the role of the traditional healer, all of these kinds of issues. Obviously, we have half an hour in which to do it, but I think that we put the issue out there, and hopefully what it will do is provide people for thought, food for thought, and just kind of open up the discussion, but really showing you how the discipline thinks about this particular issue. We have episodes coming up that deal with human rights and dignity. And I mean, that particular discussion kind of brought home to me just how profoundly impacted the discipline is by this issue of human rights, and how it impacts on the broader society. How do we treat the most vulnerable members of our society? And what are your rights if you are mentally ill and potentially psychotic?
Do mentally ill people, severely mentally ill people who are institutionalized, do they get to vote?
Well, this is the issue. And I think that this is an ongoing discussion, and why they should be denied that is an issue that is currently being debated and looked at. So this is the whole point, because if you look constitutionally, if you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everybody is equal before the law. However, some people are less equal when it comes to what should be a universal franchise, where everybody is entitled to participate in a functional democracy. So these are the kinds of issues that we would unpack and look at. And again, you would say, well, geez, what's that got to do with psychiatry? It's got a lot to do with psychiatry, because as a discipline, we are the ones who hold the responsibility of, in certain instances, needing to remove a person's rights, where you would be declared an involuntary user, for the purposes of restoring those rights through health. So it's an onerous profession in some ways, but it's one where we are entrusted with that responsibility. And I think that in doing my kind of reading and thinking about human rights, it struck me that I'm not sure that as a trainee in psychiatry, and even as a young psychiatrist, I fully grasped just how much of a responsibility it is to be a psychiatrist under those circumstances.
Prof, before I get into some more of the subject matter that you're going to be covering and the exact reasons for us deciding to do this, Mbulelo's mother is also a psychiatrist, and Mbulelo and I have been talking a lot recently on the show about like the cultural, the stuff you cover in the first episode. And I don't want to go over territory that you're going to give us at 11 a.m. this morning, because the show launches today. And Alan, you're actually the producer of the show as well. But perhaps you have something to add in here, Mbulelo. I mean, for your mom, she is a psychiatrist in Limpopo province, where obviously, you know, resources are stretched thin, where people have cultural sensitivities when it comes to psychiatry, because, you know, there are only two settings for kind of, you know, a lot of the more culturally traditional ways of looking at this. There are two settings. Either you're mad and you must be excluded from society completely, and there's no helping you, and you're looked upon with huge amounts of judgment and sometimes even ugliness, and people are not particularly sympathetic to those guys and girls. Or you are somebody who's trying to be Western, and you're trying to seek out Western solutions. How does your mum deal with that stuff, Mbulelo?
So, you know what? When I was really young, I was, believe it or not, a bit of an upstart. You know, I'm obviously very conservative and not opinionated now. I asked my mother a question she still hasn't answered. I said, how does she reconcile being religious and being a doctor? And that actually led to this question that you're asking now, kind of us discussing it over the years. But what's been interesting is actually South Africa, relatively speaking, is quite organized, and there is, you know, when people get sick, Gareth, and when death is at your door, and it doesn't need to be real, but as the prof will tell us, is if you imagine you're going to die, people actually, every identity politic tends to go away. And now I'm giving you my mother's answer, not what I say, is that when people think they're going to die or they feel pain, all of that stuff stops mattering about, should I go Sangoma, should I go Western? And that is her answer. But I just want to finish off on this, is where her life really got interesting, because actually most of her practice was done on the rest of the continent in her work, was that there it's really like they don't want to hear about psychiatrists in certain regions where she was. And now you must imagine a lot of the work she did for the 20 years she was involved in the previous company was that it was in war zones as well. So that adds a whole other layer to the question you're asking. So for my mom, she's a little bit of a different animal. She doesn't want to hear it. You know, she compartmentalizes all of it, and it's like, hey, if you're here, there are rules. I went to university. Take a seat. She's not very nicey about it. You know, as warm as she is as a person, it's very clear. If you're here, don't tell me about your sangoma, and you know, there's a space for that. Leave that over there. But that's how she rolls.
So, Prof, we've decided to call this show Beyond Madness. Now, aren't you going to get a lot of pushback from people because you're using the word madness? And we know that mental health has been something which has been a pejorative, calling people mad and saying the word madness has been regarded as very politically incorrect and not particularly sensitive. Are you worried about that at all?
Well, first of all, just to answer that question, no. And just to get back to Mbulelo, just to say that spirituality and science are not mutually exclusive. And I think that one can integrate the two, and certainly psychiatry, and certainly myself as a psychiatrist, I don't see a hierarchical relationship there. I think everybody must get what they need as they need it. So therefore, for me, I take a much more integrated view. And I think that any good scientist who's respectful as a clinician also of their patient's needs would understand that. So just, you know, in response to Mbulelo's point there. But just getting back to what you'd asked me, am I going to get pushback for the use of the word madness? I think we should be less sensitive about that, because remember, the program is called Beyond Madness.
Right.
And I think that there is a stereotypical view of psychiatry, psychiatrists maybe even, as well as their patients, you know, being mad. And I'm saying, okay, now hang on a sec. We're going to go beyond madness. We're going to go beyond madness in terms of talking about not psychiatric diagnoses per se. We're going to be talking about issues in psychiatry. And in fact, as psychiatrists, we're not going to be talking about diagnosing patients. We're going to be talking about the issues that we need to think about that impact on our patients, that feed into patient care. So I think the the word was chosen, maybe provocatively. In fact, I shouldn't say maybe. I think intentionally, but I think there's a purpose behind it. And certainly it's not pejorative. And the truth of the word is people do use the word madness in all kinds of contexts. And we're kind of bringing it back, but then we're taking it away from. And we're saying, you know what? We're going beyond madness.
I like it.
Gareth, I must tell you, the level of guests on the show, first, it's an honor to produce the show, number one. Number two is I've worked with the professor on 3 Talk with Nalene and on 702 for many years. And so finally, I'm so happy to see that he's taking front and center and he's got his own show because he is brilliantly capable. And by the way, not only one of the every person that comes on the show, Gareth, is an expert in their field. And they're professors, they're top doctors. And so we did a fascinating interview on sexual offenses and personality disorder. So when you're looking at pedophilia, rape, that type of stuff, we've got some other very interesting things coming up with other professors talking about spirituality and how do you marry spirituality and psychiatry. And so you're going to be in for a 13-part podcast series that is filled with the best of the best on the continent, and of course we've got some guest prof overseas. Of course, we're speaking
psychedelics.
We're doing the cannabis debate. Yeah, we're doing some really crazy, interesting things. Careful how you use
crazy?
the word.
Did you say crazy?
Yeah,
interesting. Crazy. No, you just triggered me.
Oh well, and so we are just so excited that this platform. And why we love being on the CliffCentral platform, besides obviously being on Apple, we're all over
all of them,
all your other podcasts with you guys. But it's Gareth, your audience and the people that you speak to really want betterment in their life. They want to learn more, and this show is going to teach you stuff and is give you the tools.
I mean, if you can go as controversial as mental health and sexual offenses, which is obviously an area that gets a lot of people very prickly, and then you can talk about psychedelics in another episode. I think this is going to touch on a lot of things that people are really into. Dr. Robbins says, I'm just wondering if the doctors can get CPD points for listening to this new podcast.
In fact, that's an interesting one because generally these days we kind of apply for CPD points for everything. That never crossed my mind actually, but the truth of the matter is it's educational, it's informative, but not informative in this kind of didactic way. I'd said to Alan, listen, if people want to know what schizophrenia is, go read a textbook.
Yes.
What about the person who's schizophrenic, who's psychotic, who lands up in an institution? How are they dealt with? What are their rights? Can they vote if it's voting day while they're hot? So we're looking at the issues. But can I tell a quick story that marries this whole issue of psychiatry and traditional societies?
Yes.
A very senior colleague, Norman Sartorius, told a story about Bedouins in the desert. And a bunch of psychiatrists went out there to kind of see how they live and what they're about. And in their midst was a man who was chained up. And they were kind of curious and said, okay, what's the deal with this man? And the guy said, well, he's possessed. And so we have to take care of him. And they said, do you mind if we, well, exactly. Do you mind if we speak to him? I said, no, sure, speak to him. Psychiatrist had a good conversation. Went back to the elders and said, he's not possessed. He's actually ill. He suffers from a psychiatric illness. So the elders were very kind of thoughtful and, okay, thank you. Off went the psychiatrist, came back the next day. Tribe's gone, but the man in chains is remaining behind. Moral of the story. Whilst he was thought of as suffering from what was understood to be a legitimate possession, he was to be protected. Suddenly they're told he's got an illness, stay the hell away. So the point is this, be careful, unintended consequences. And that's why I say to you, psychiatry has to be respectful of what prevails culturally in communities. And you don't simply go in there and say, as much as psychiatry does see itself as universal, and probably is at a certain level, you've also got to be very mindful and very respectful.
Well, Raisebek says here in Limpopo, you could be called a witch if you're mentally ill. And we know that happens.
No, in Limpopo, they'll call you a witch for anything. Please, let's not use mental. I'm from Limpopo. Let's not conflict the issues, please.
I remember those kind of issues in Sekukuni land going up that way. I mean, it was a very deeply entrenched issue and could lead to dire consequences.
Tell us about your background here. It's always fascinating to me when we get to meet really, really smart people who've done incredible things in their careers. How did it all start for you, and what have you got up to in your career? Give us a little.
Where do I begin? Jeez, I feel a song coming on. Where do I begin? But I won't sing for you. Listen. Firstly, I'm a Witsi through and through. Undergraduate, postgraduate. I've spent my career at Wits, so proudly. Witsi. There's that other university in the south, but we're number one as far as I'm concerned. Although, having said that, a lot of my guests are from UCT, so a lot of respect to UCT. In terms of where I came from, how far back do you want to go? I mean, are we in the womb here, or are we?
Let's keep it to your career. I mean, what made you want to go into psychiatry in particular? I mean, you become a doctor, and then you can specialize in mental health.
I tell you what it was. I was an intern. In those days, they used to call us housemen. I was a houseman back in the 80s, and I did my housemanship or internship, as they would call it today, at Baragwanath, Barra. I'm very proudly a Barra boy, so to speak. And there was a Ward 20, where when I was doing medicine, all of the acute medical cases would go there. And I was fascinated by the psychiatric patients. I remember one guy in particular who would stand behind the nurses and he would move his hands like this. And he said, no, he was a snake. And what was he doing? He was stealing all the keys. And he stole everybody's keys and hid them all over the place. And he just captured my imagination. And I thought to myself, psychiatry, there's something here. There's something interesting about this discipline. And I'd gone back to my student years, where I had met my first psychiatric patient while sitting behind a psychiatrist, and she was busy giving an account of a person called Spooky, who was really threatening her. And I was sitting behind the psychiatrist, and I burst out laughing because I'd never heard of something so absurd. And she said to me in Afrikaans, she said, "Ja, jy kan lag, doctor." Yes, you can laugh, doctor. And I kind of was very chastened. After she left, the psychiatrist turned around to me and he said, "First lesson." He said, "You can laugh with a patient, never at a patient." And I never forget that. And so these were my kind of early exposures to psychiatry. And then I did national service and what have you. And I traveled the world for a year. I took a year off. I felt I'd been institutionalized for too long. I needed to get the hell out and find new pastures. Came back and I took a decision that I was going to specialize. And I thought, well, you know what? If I am going to specialize, I need to do something that really works for me. And so I chose psychiatry. I also felt that it was a discipline that best suited my nature in terms of my inclination to kind of think about things. And I would like to think I've got a more creative side to me. And I thought it's the one discipline that can probably accommodate me. And so I think it was a good fit, and here I am. And I think what's interesting to me is that at the very beginning of my studies, I had two choices, medicine or journalism. And now I find myself potentially marrying the two.
That's fantastic. So it's come full circle. That's really cool. Al, are there lots and lots of people that we've never heard before on podcasts? Because these may be people who've been in medical journals and who have given expert opinions in places that those of us who are not experts don't know about. This may be our first encounter with some of these people.
Well, it's incredible to see the guests are from far and wide, but they are the best in the business, literally. And people that you haven't heard of, brilliant minds, and it's nice to give them this platform. And I've got to just add to this that when Professor, we had this discussion. He was busy doing some work with Adcock Ingram, OTC, and it was so fascinating because when Sudhir Rampasad introduced me again, because obviously I knew Professor Christopher Szabo from the days that I booked him for 3 Talk and many of the shows that we did in the past. It was fascinating to see how sponsors of Brave really wanted to get behind him in doing a show like this, because to realize that you have a problem with your mental health, and there is no health, and Prof says this all the time, it's our key line of the show, there is no health without mental health. That if you are brave enough to realize you've got a problem, if you're brave enough to go and see someone about it, then we want to support you. We want to, and that's why Sponsors of Brave is behind this. Adcock Ingram OTC Sponsors of Brave, because you have to be brave to get better. You have to be brave to realize that you need to get a family member health. You've got to be brave to be able to seek that help. And this show is about empowering you to get the help that you or your family member or your friend needs, because mental health affects us all. And this is this issue is now with COVID times at the forefront of, we're so worried about getting sick of COVID, the bug. I think COVID, the mental illnesses around COVID are far and wide, and we are only starting to see them creep in now.
I think it's such a valid point that you make. Now, Prof, I just need to bring it back for all of those of us who are not in your world and who are interested and perhaps even fascinated by it. What is the general occurrence of real serious mental health issues among the South African population? Do we have any idea of how large the problem, the scope of these kinds of challenges are for people? Because we often hear, we hear a lot of amateur nonsense in the media about, this one is dealing with severe clinical issues around schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or anything else. Do we know how widespread these situations really are among our population?
Look, I mean, one can quote percentages, and I'm always kind of wary of quoting percentages, because at the end of the day, I'm not always sure what that means. I think that what one can say is that one has to distinguish between what one would call a serious mental illness, and here we're talking about the schizophrenias and the bipolars. And it's not to say that illnesses such as depression or anxiety are not serious, but there are obviously levels. I think at the end of the day, the issue is the extent to which whatever one is suffering emotionally compromises you and impacts on your ability to function as you ordinarily would, and the extent to which you experience these emotional difficulties in a way that is distressing for you. So I think that these are the two key issues that you will find in any diagnostic process: the level of individual distress and the level of dysfunctionality. So as I said, there are various percentages. I mean, we're looking at the fact that probably conditions are under-recognized, and very importantly, mental health and psychiatry as a discipline is under-resourced in the public sector. And this is a real major issue. And, when we start to talk about stigma, we always think about how individuals stigmatize other individuals. I look at it differently. I see how we as a discipline suffer from what I would call systemic stigma, where we actually are under-resourced and we are not given the kind of resources that we need to fully treat the patient population that is out there.
It's terrific. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be fascinating and interesting in every dimension. I'm looking forward to hearing the opinions of all these various experts, getting into some pretty controversial subject matter too. And we won't leave any stone unturned.
No, not at all. Everything is out there.
Well, there it is. Professor Christopher Paul Szabo, who will be the host of the show, Alan Ford producing that and making sure we have really, really terrific guests. And if anybody's interested, this could be the thing that really answers a lot of those questions for you around psychiatry and the more intricate and sometimes a little more technical, but also those subjects that we all encounter fairly regularly, but aren't entirely sure about the vocabulary of, and maybe the actual discussions around them, and what the impact of all of that on our lives is, whether we're actually suffering from something ourselves, whether we know someone who is, or whether we're just interested in it from a sociological point of view. It's all going to be answered. Beyond Madness starts today on CliffCentral.com at 11 a.m. You can get the podcast on our site, on our app, on Google, on Spotify, on Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, in proud association with Adcock Ingram OTC, who are the sponsors of Brave. Great work. And Prof, we will speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you. See you.
Cheers,
Have a good
Prof.
day. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. There we go. Did you know that Mbulelo's been accused of witchcraft, El? That's a revelation for you.
I didn't. What does he do? It's so much fun.
I'm vendor. It's starter pack. You know, so my grandmother was vendor, Alan,
Now
and
you're
it's in the
vendor.
genes.
Yeah, I love this guy. He claims to be Xhosa sometimes, then he's Pedi, now he's vendor. Make up
Yeah,
your
but
mind.
the president's vendor now. I'm jumping on that. My grandmother was vendor. What must I do about that?
But
if
the cool
we get
thing
another...
is, at least you vended.
yeah. All right. Very
He
good.
has in Limpopo there was that story that was going around. It was either Limpopo or Swaziland or both, where there were air traffic controllers who were getting calls from people saying there's a witch flying around the airport and we're worried that she's going to be sucked into the engines of the various planes. No, it was a serious thing. Like one of the pilots wouldn't take off because someone had warned him there were flying objects. It turned out the flying objects were being reported by like villagers in the area, and they were saying witches on brooms are flying around and getting in the general the air, what do they call it? I suppose the airspace of the various airports. It was a real story. It was even reported in the news.
The further north you go in this country, the more ridiculous it gets, just so people know. Like once you go past sort of Polokwane, the city itself, I mean, for us hoity-toity suburban people, it just starts to get ridiculous. You go past Polokwane, then it starts to get mental. By the time you get to Mavenda, oh my God, anything's possible. And they are electric, by the way. I love Venda people.
And I've done some fascinating stories up with lots of sangomas, even into Zambia, and in Yangas, actually, for that matter. One is a pharmacist in traditional medicine, and one is obviously the doctor, a traditional doctor. But the interesting thing is how we've got a sector of white sangomas, and literally not that when you go put that clay on your hand and you look white, but no. White.
We've got a white sangoma in my family. I kid you not.
So it's fascinating, and of course the traditional healing that ancestors and all that.
I want to talk to an umtagati. I don't want to talk to.
Yes.
I want to interview one of those umtagati. Those those bad witch doctors, the one who leaves spells and makes muti and those kinds of things. Those people are interesting.
So, Alan, as you sort of are, your life will be undergoing changes.
Sorry, I just want to clear something up. Hang on. Yes. By no means are we equating Professor Szabo with these Inyangas and umtagatis and all the rest of it. All right, the one is definitely a scientific basis thing. The other is much more a traditional thing, and we're not going to be forced to put them in the same category. I'm sorry.
But on that note, Gareth, this first episode, that's why we kicked off with cross-cultural the role of traditional medicine in psychiatry. That's why we opened the most apropos topic to start this series was to look at what is happening in our traditional societies and traditional communities, and how Western medicine, or so-called Western medicine, has integrated. And it's fascinating. The professor that he has on is just brilliant. Today, listen to the show if you want to learn more about that.
They're very good. Awesome. Apparently, Michael says, do you remember there was a guy on his deck chair with balloons, like in the movie Up? There was a guy in Los Angeles who actually shut down LA air traffic because he was tied to a bunch of helium balloons on a deck chair and went up into the sky over the Los Angeles airport, LAX.
I'm surprised he's not dead.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what happened to him when the balloons started bursting or when they all ran out of helium, but it must have been a bit of a mess. I don't know how you get someone down. What do you do?
I'm sure he had a parachute or something. I mean, someone like that obviously thought it through.
I don't know if he thought it through. He could also be, just one of these nutcases who's trying to get up into the sky. But apparently, according to MM, it is true. The witches were actually ordered by the aviation authority to fly below a certain altitude because they were getting in the way of planes.
Okay.
Of course, the witches.
That's always good.
One thing we know about witches is they always obey air traffic rules. Very important.
That's always been a shining. That really is where they come through in terms of their compliance to aviation law.
Al, there was an issue we had last time you were on the show where you talked about a woman who came and accosted you at a restaurant or a hotel or something, and you told this very funny story about how she was hiding in the bushes and watching people. There was a follow-up to that.
Well, firstly, the husband of this woman decided to come and beat me up at the hotel I was staying at Waterford Estate. Now, you understand, a Karen in the bush is the saying. And she was sneaking around, just to recap on the story. This person was sneaking around in the bushes, taking pictures of people drinking during lockdown. Okay, so, all right. So again, and I wasn't seeing it, by the way, it doesn't do with being drunk then. It was really a Karen or Karen in the bush. Anyway, this particular person's name was that.
Oh, wow. So she thought you were actually...
Unbeknown to you and I, because you did the interview. And they wanted to come after you as well, Gareth. They asked for you. So I didn't know if I should get my lab cousins to come and stand at the door and do some... But again, I haven't been involved in that any longer, but I just think that people need to be good neighbors. Look how I was so nice with the hookers. The hookers are my neighbors. I went to go and say hello to them.
You're not an unfriendly person.
So you can see I did some nice things, so be neighborly, be kind to each other.
What happened to the guy who wanted to beat you up? That's you've left.
I don't know. The management kind of got rid of him off the hotel because he said I'm talking about his wife, and I'm like, I don't know you or your wife. There was a person in the bush. Is that your wife?
I always think when we're talking about things on this podcast, I always think that we've got a moderate. We've got a large audience, but they're not as large as the audience on like national radio where I was before. But you don't think that someone who's going to, be listening to us will know the person involved in a story that you told. And here it was. It all kind of unfolded because you told the story on the show. And we forget that there are people listening all over the country and in various different places. And they may be far more widespread an audience than we imagine.
And the point of it was that, remember, you don't have to go in bushes to catch people doing this wrong. It's not your place to be Mr. Police in the bush, pushing around. It's not clever. It's just I don't get it. And the point was, stay out the bushes, keep to your business, focus on your own life, your own mental health, your own problems. Stop worrying about other people are doing their thing. It's ridiculous. Stay out the bushes. I don't know. Listen.
All right, look after yourselves. We've got to wrap this fun up. We will be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Alan Ford. Yeah. Oh, nice. You behave yourself there. No drinking.
No wine farms. Can't do that. Yep.
No wine farm. Alan Ford, our guest this morning. Mbulelo. We also were joined by Revix. We were joined by Prof. Szabo. It's been a busy day. We've got lots more for you the rest of this week. And tomorrow, of course, being Thursday, means the Burning Platform. And the Burning Platform in election month. It's going to be fiery. That much I can promise you. You're going to have some of the politicians on as usual, and they will be trying to win your vote and trying to win your confidence. So who knows who we're going to have tomorrow? You better be joining us just at around 7 o'clock. And obviously for the first hour of the show too. But if you want to be here for 7 o'clock for the Burning Platform, do not miss it. Make sure you take part in that. And you'll be more informed than the other people who vote. And as Alan says, look after your own problems. Deal with your own issues.
It's just out the bushes, Alan says.
Just stay out of the bushes and stop getting involved in other people's lives. It's none of your business.
And hookers, follow the rules of curfew, please. Go back inside.